Well, let us get more on this and speak to Vanessa Neumann, founder and CEO of Asymmetrica, a consultancy and accelerator of defence technology. Thanks very much indeed, Vanessa, for being with us. First of all, on the comments that we've had on the Politico interview today, what do you make of them?
Well, there's so much to cover, and I can cover both the Venezuela aspect and the EU aspect, because I live in Madrid and I'm deeply involved in sort of the defense tech packages under SAFE to separate the European defense sovereignty from US dependency.
Okay,
so
let's start with Europe. Let's start with Europe.
So start with Europe.
Well, let's start with Europe in that, since you mentioned it, in that, the real criticism of the weakness of a group of countries that has been a long-standing ally. It is a sort of threat, in a way, to the whole post-World War II order. But it is also echoing a language that you've seen from this White House for many, many months now.
Yes, it is. And the Europeans have taken it very seriously. So currently, what is coming through Europe is an 800 billion euro package called Rearm Europe, of which the first tranche, which is 150 billion, called Safe Security Action for Europe, is already underway. The applications from the member states are in, and for you to be a member state, you have to be a European Union member of NATO. So NATO as Europe, but as also Canada, US, and UK. It seeks to basically fund innovation, and I'm deeply involved in this on a daily basis. This is my day job, okay? To form coalitions amongst different countries to prompt innovation. Now, some of that innovation is already within Europe, and some of it are small and medium enterprises from outside Europe who are seeking the golden roads paved for this money, which is almost free money that is borrowed by the European Union and sent to these member states for these defense packages so that they can defend themselves without the United States. The CEO of Rheinmetall, one of the biggest prime defense contractors in Europe, a German company, has said that this will make Europe a better partner for the United States in the future. However, what's interesting is that a lot of the money is secretly coming into these programs from American banks. So whatever the position of the White House and European defense sovereignty, whose time is, in everybody's view, is long past, it is actually being heavily funded by US banks who will get a foothold into this sovereignty. And they're stepping up. They're taking this seriously. The applications are in. The first amounts of money will be dished out in February, and then between here and 2030, there's 800 billion euros, which is what has been estimated is that the cataclysmic scenario of if the United States leaves Europe, and not just NATO, with all of its material and personnel, it would take $1 trillion to replace, and Europe already has the plan in place and is executing it.
And I mean, from what you see from the people that you're speaking to, I mean, how much is it the case that both, perhaps on the Ukraine question, therefore, both, there's an incentive for Europe to prolong the talks for as long as possible in a way in that whilst they build up their military capability to try and keep Trump engaged, and Moscow is doing exactly the same thing. And therefore, when we see these constant rounds of talks and both parties so far apart, should we have any faith in any of it, given Trump's clear position that whilst he flips from side to side, he wants a deal, doesn't he? And he's sort of running out of patience, it seems, with Zelensky in particular.
Well, so the Ukraine deal also touches upon the Venezuela issue. So if we can segue between Europe and Ukraine, is also, the Venezuelan opposition, of which I have been a member for a very, very long time and was a special envoy to the UK, is, we always thought that Trump, being the deal maker that he is, might make a deal with Putin of step away from Venezuela, which is not really your backyard and is, quite frankly, doesn't have the money to repay you and can't really use your military equipment, and we'll let you keep the portions of Ukraine that where you have gained territory. And that seems to be the language of Trump that he has been using.
And not
So
just because we're just running out of time a bit, on Venezuela, where obviously I know you do have a lot of expertise, again, your reaction to that interview where he did seem to potentially increase the pressure and the possibility of what might come.
Well, the pressure and the possibility of what might come is actually not just in the National Security Strategy, which was published a few days ago, but even 48 hours ago, we had the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the congressional funding bill for what is essentially the national security strategy, right? So one thing is a bit of think tank policy, and the other one is the money. And the money seems like it will be approved. It will be approved in one house in the representatives chamber this week, and possibly the Senate next week. And in it, he very clearly specifies, for the first time as long as I've been working the Western Hemisphere, which is at least since 2008, it has been that he considers the Western Hemisphere to be the prime area of military defense and defense of the homeland for the United States. And it specifically authorizes this forward deployment and ongoing campaigns against drug trafficking in almost a preemptive strike way. So what you're seeing now is about to get funded, and not just in Venezuela, but also Colombia, Ecuador, and any other countries. So he's about to get carte blanche and the check written by Congress to do this. So we can expect more of this talk to continue.
Just briefly, what do you think Trump's motive is in Venezuela?
Well, I think that the motive is I think that the motive is indeed the drug trafficking, the immigration. I mean, if you look at all the MAGA interviews over the years, in which I have actually participated myself, that language has continued, that the Venezuelan immigration was a threat, and the Tren de Aragua, and the drug trafficking, and the socialism. Now, I do think that he wants to get rid of Maduro. By the way, so do most Venezuelans. They voted Maduro out twice, and he still clings to power. And we have a very repressive government, not government, dictatorship. So I think that is his motivation. To say that he's after the oil, I don't buy it. He's actually of far more interest, because if he takes over Venezuelan oil, the United States is already a net exporter. It actually damages American economic interests, and it can only process it in the Gulf of Mexico processing plants, okay, and in the Caribbean. What they're really after, what's really far more interesting to the United States, are the critical minerals and the natural gas, which can be liquefied in TNT, Trinidad and Tobago, which has one of the few facilities where you can hook a pipeline into the Dragon fields, which actually would challenge the supremacy of Qatar, okay, in terms of natural gas. So that is really the play, far more than the oil.
Vanessa Neumann, very good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me.